Hi, I'm John Yeomans. I farm with my wife Sarah and our three boys, Tom, Jack and Joe at Llwyn Adfa, just above Newtown. My wife's probably much more crucial to the business than I am, and my three sons, Tom, the eldest one's home at the moment, but all of them travel and work all over the world. Jack has in fact just become a citizen in Australia. But all of them, every decision we make of any size on the farm, we involve them in it wherever they are in the world. Originally I'm from Birmingham and my wife is from London, and the way we came around here really, my dad was a butcher in Birmingham and his family had links to farming. I had no interest in farming at all, and he, when he was 60, bought Llwyn, which is in 1973 when I was about 11. So the sort of background to the farm really, obviously when it was 68 acres, a lot less stock, but it's about 274 or something like that now, spread over a few different blocks. We run around about sort of 70 to 80 suckler cows and about 10 or 15 replacement heifers. It's all closed herd, some pedigree Limousins, Belgian Blues, and a few Canadian Speckled Park, which is sort of more of a native bred type beast. And then predominantly Bewley ewes. We tap around 700, including the ewe lambs. So the farm at home is sort of harvested for silage. A lot of that is shut out, most of it's shut out. Just graze a few cows at home during the summer, and then most of the stock come up here to the two hill blocks that we've got. We got into this rotational grazing 2013 really, after, it's obviously seen it's been going for obviously many decades, we'd had 2013, which was a really tough year on a lot of farmers. A lot of snow during lambing, and we were kind of thinking, well, we're going to have to change something or give up basically and try and become more efficient. So we started doing more then, and we've sort of brought that across the whole farm really, which has increased the stocking rates massively really. So the way I'd sort of say it to people is by buying a bit of electric fencing. If you had 100 acres and you bought some electric fencing, which obviously is a cost to it, there's a lot of experts would say you'd get at least 20% extra grass growth and better utilisation. So for the cost of some electric fencing, you're basically farming 120 acres. So we started splitting this up then in about 2014. We had pretty reasonable fences here. So this top section that we're on now, we've split that into 8, and then by rotating the stock around, the grass gets rested and seems to grow better. So this is monitored a bit more expertly by Chris Duller with the cages and stuff you can see around. So in 2020 we got up to, and it's quite a short growing season here because we're at 1420 feet, it's pretty wet, it's quite deep peat. We got up to about 10 tonne of dry matter per hectare, which we were quite chuffed about. And then last year we got to almost 13 tonne. But in the meantime, when you look at it and you think, oh, you know, it looks pretty monoculture sort of stuff. But we've got, you know, we've got plantain, we've got clovers, we've got timothy and things like that. But also the hare have come back a lot more. And we did have a lot of lapwing came back up to about 65 lapwing were up here. But sadly, they've declined due to predation, probably and possibly badgers, but also a lot of big gulls come up here and set about them. But we've got a lot of curlew about, there's several nesting here, and there's some back at home as well. And as I've said before, really, I think it's really crucial that the farming and the environment thing go hand in hand, and should do. And if you don't get the farming bit up some shape, you can't afford to do the other bits. So one of the problems up here was water. That when you do this rotational grazing, you obviously got to get water, and up here it can go, you either be very, very wet or very, very dry. So we've sunk concrete rings in and put water troughs around the hill, as we've got sort of half a dozen or so water troughs around. But we've also, as you can see, there's a pool down here, and we put a solar pump on there, and we're pumping water up, and then we've got water being gravity fed back around, which has made the grazing a lot better. And we have cattle up here hopefully in the next few weeks, and on the other block we've done as well. So we're sort of trying to do a kind of a rounded thing of trying to farm to make a living and pay our HSBC loans off, which I think the final one is when I'm 79 years old, if I can get that far. But try and do, you know, good stuff for the environment, like most farmers are doing, I think. And I think most farmers, you know, it's lovely to see the wildlife and stuff and the environment thriving, but also as we intend to put sort of trees down the side here a little bit to help the shade and stuff like that, and then you get a bit of a microclimate within your hedges and your trees, which can lift the yields of the grass and obviously helps the wildlife and helps the shelter of the stock. So you know, we're just like most farmers, we're just trying to do the right thing, really. So when the kids were little, we used to come, and when my mum and dad were alive, come down and occasionally have a picnic down here. But it's not, and it goes up and down pretty rapidly when there's a flood and stuff. But yeah, it's nice, and it's nice to see. I haven't been down here for a little while. Tom's down here most night with taking the dogs for a walk. But it's nice to see all the trout back and stuff. You know, because there was a bit of a spell, I suppose, where farmers didn't have such a good name. But from what you were saying and the things you found, you know, there's no pollution in this river, which is really good news. You know, and it's nice to have these things. You know, we're lucky to live here and lucky to be able to sort of share it, really. The sort of trend was, oh, it's great if you've got natural water on the farm, which it kind of is. But the downside, if you're downstream from anybody, potentially, that's not running down neighbours or anything like that, but potentially you could have, you know, their disease or our disease could be spreading further down river. So we're tending to gradually work around the farm, sort of fencing out the watercourses, which also leaves a bit of a wildlife corridor and stuff like that. And you haven't got to worry about sheep getting stuck in the river and things like that. So we've tended to put water troughs out in the fields, which helps with the rotational grazing we do as well, you know.
You're looking over across here now at ancient woodland plants, the wooden enemies. Can you tell us a bit more about the woodland and the plants we're finding in there?
We've been told before that a lot of species here that indicate it's ancient woodland, but I was reading an article from Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust just last week that said that wooden anemones are a big indicator because they spread so slowly. And we've got one or two here. We're seeing some more wildflowers come back as well. Early purple orchids, we had 2, but now we're seeing a lot more every year. We've got some just behind us, and one area that used to be fenced off, it was just being openly grazed as the fences have fallen down over time. So I hot-wired it off last year just to give the saplings a chance to grow back. I realised no new trees were coming back, and about 100 early common orchids, I think they are, came back, a new species we've never seen here before. We used to be lucky if you saw 1 heron. Now we're seeing 7 at a time quite frequently. I was camping down here last summer with my girlfriend and we were woken up by a heron in the middle of the night.
Wow.
We got the thrush has come back now. We haven't seen a thrush around here for a few years. See them almost daily at the moment. Filfares and redwings, haven't seen them before. They came through with the starlings this winter and early spring.
There's some flower in there if you want to see one with a flower in it. But there's like oxeye daisies, there's all sorts of rucks of stuff there was. I was hellish chuffed with how it come, because it just looked horrendous, didn't it, Tom, for months, literally months probably. And then come about September-ish, wasn't it, Tom? It come up and just was all flowering. There's one bit flowering there. Yeah. Well, we only planted it last year, see? So we waited for it to come up, because one of the beekeepers here had said, oh, you can buy a wildflower bale of hay off somebody that they knew. And I was going to roll it round, and then the woman, I spoke to her on the phone, she never got back to us. So we've done all of this without grant and this fence up here, so we want to double fence that at some point. We put it in about May time last year, and then waited, and all that seemed to be coming was sort of thistles and docks and what have you. But it was amazing, by sort of September, October time, you know, there's a few just starting to flower now, but it was just a real sea of flowers. It was really lovely. But no grant on it at all or anything like that, it's just because we thought it was a nice thing to do, really. We put in a couple of ponds there, again, no grant on them, but it was a wet old area. We did that a long time ago, 20, 30 years ago. But there's loads of damselflies and dragonflies and stuff like that on it, you know, and a lot of insects and stuff. So yeah, I'm hoping, you know, we're hoping it'll come. It's just trying to control these weeds amongst it without affecting the flower sort of thing. So we're trying to do that almost individually, really.
For the benefits of areas like this on the farm for wildlife, so you get your pollinators, bird life as well, looking at, you know, the seed production as well from this, and just a haven, you know, like a rough area for birds to nest, animals, insects.
And it's just nice to see, isn't it? I know you could argue that we're kind of sacrificing productive, you know, land, but it's not a huge patch, and I don't know, if your life was all about money, you probably wouldn't be farming, I'd say, really. been renting this ground since about the year 2001, I think it was, and then we were very fortunate that the landlord gave us a chance of buying it in 2018 or 19, I think. So there's quite a tall hedge here, and this area below was a sort of a bog, and the stock could sort of roam back all over the place. And then last year Tom put up electric wire across it, and then loads of various wildflowers, a lot of orchids and stuff, like hundreds came, and we sort of fancied trying to get the hedge back under control and stuff like that. And as I was saying before, you know, getting the fencing right helps the wildlife over here and helps our grazing over here. So we can hopefully be more efficient and lift the production of the farm. You know, and it's lovely to see, really. It was fenced by a lad who's not really a lad anymore. He's quite an elderly bloke of about 50, called John Yeomans, who's you know, who's won a lot of hedging competitions. It was quite a difficult one to do, as you can see. Some big old stuff in it, but it's lovely to see. It's not that long ago that he finished his in the last couple of months, but it's already budding up, you know. So and there's a lot of firewood to be had out of it as well. So you know, really pleased with it.
And we were talking before about GWCT looking at the hedgerow code now, that we'll be able to quantify the amount of carbon sequenced within these hedgerows. So hopefully we can come back and maybe measure this. Would be great.
Yeah, and I think you know, maybe it's not recognised enough that there's tragically there's some whole farms being bought up for tree planting, but just, you know, ordinary farming that we're all doing is all, you know, doing a lot of good carbon stuff, really. And a lot of us, you know, we stopped ploughing many years ago, and you know, we do a lot of reseeding, but it tends to be surface treatment stuff. And you know, it's good for carbon, it's good for the production of the farm, because it's lifting the production of the farm and hopefully lowering our bills a bit, although everything's going through the roof. But you know, it's sort of good all round, really. And it disappoints me that some of the policy makers haven't recognised some of the good work that's been going on farms for generations, really. This piece, although it's only about 3.5 acres, and I should have already done it before we put the stock on, but we're busy lambing. This will be fenced into 4 quarters, and then the plan will be they'll bear each piece off 2 or 3 days, or a little bit more, hopefully a bit more, and then gradually move them around, and it will be growing up behind them. And there's, you know, plantain, chicory, several different sorts of clover, red clovers, timothy, stuff like that in it. And the belief being that there's a sort of medicinal quality through the plantain. And there's varying depths of root, so it's good for the soil structure, but also can cope with more extremes of the weather, is the plan. But we put chicory in many years ago on the hill, and it was too wet for it, and we've used plantain on the hill, which I like, but we can't get the longevity on it. So a good friend of mine, Owen, who used to teach me in college, said, well, put a whole field in and see how that goes, but it might only last 2 or 3 years, but we'll see.
I know we were speaking to another farmer in the farm network, and they just going into the world of herbal leys now, on a dairy farm, and what they were astounded by, and what the farm manager was astounded by, the amount of insect life that was increased on the herbal leys, going from a ryegrass field to a herbal ley. Have you noticed that at all?
Well, I think when we've put the chicory, the plantain, on the hill, in Welsh, as you would know, they call it pencaled, and they hardhead, and well, there's a little beetle or something crawling across there now. So you kind of, it's as it gets on into the summer, those will actually come up into head. So I suppose they're going to draw more insects and things like that, really.
And your mixtures of clovers as well.
Yeah.
Pollinators.
Yeah. And by the sort of shutting them off and moving them, so that you know, it's hopefully allowing it to thrive more, and hopefully you want the crowns of these plants to, I think red clover particularly, and the plantain and the chicory, they won't stick it if you give the crown of the plant a hiding. And the beekeepers that we've got, they've got a few hives here, were saying that they love the plantain and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully it's a gainer all round. We'll see. I'm not sure how long it's going to last, so before we put too much more in, we'll see how that goes, you know. But even if it's relatively short term, it might be that the benefits we have from it, because we don't plough or anything, we just do mostly surface treatment, kind of that it's not terribly expensive to establish, so we'll see how we go. Obviously the belief is that there is a medicinal quality, and these trace elements are coming up and stuff like that.
Have you analysed the parasite? Have you taken feck pack?
Yeah, well, we do feck analyses about every 2 weeks once they get going. We do a lot with zootists, so they were involved in this parasite watch thing with them. So we use that as a kind of an indicator, and we also try to, but things like nematodiaries, you've got to do the whole lot, but we try to do a bit of worming on weight gain. So if their sort of grams per day is less than a threshold, we haven't picked a particularly high threshold, only about 200 grams a day. You know, but that's a kilo every 5 days, and it sort of thing. Then we drench them if they were below and not above. So I think the best lot we were doing last year we'd done them with StarTech, which is one of these, kill all known worms dead sort of thing. And the one lot that we'd done with them, I think when we came around maybe 6 weeks later, I think we only had to worm about 13% of them, and they had pretty good growth rates compared to the ones we hadn't done. So. If you're in the red, you can't be green. So if you can't farm productively, and the government needs to wake up to this, then you can't do these other things. You can't do that extra fencing and stuff like that. And I think it's really crucial. And I also, it really annoys me that some there's some sort of advisors and people that policymakers and one or two others think that it's either environment or productive farming. And I think the two are inextricably linked, really.
That's one of our beliefs as well, GWCT, between Wales, that they can be hand in hand, and it's essential that they're hand in hand as well.
It is, and I think we've used, we've had grants on some of the stuff we've done, but we've done a lot of stuff without grant. But getting those field boundaries better and getting a good hedge, you get the shelter, you get the wildlife corridor, but it means that you can graze the ground in between more efficiently, I think, really. So I think it works well together. We've had no grant on this fence or anything, but it should just make it all easier to manage, really. And a favourite saying of mine, I'm not very good at doing the first bit, but is live as if you'll die tomorrow and farm as if you'll live forever. And I don't suppose I'll see these trees up much, before I keel over, but it's a long-term thing, innit? You're doing it for the next, many generations to come, really.